This might be the worst day in VCT history, and not for the games, but for what happened after the games, let alone the draw that happened, which is so controversial. But before we get into that, I want to talk about some of the games that happened this weekend as we go on to Monday and Tuesday for the next games. We're going to talk about first game, XLG versus NRG. And man, Kiko, man, his impact was felt. Like, I love how VCT and a lot of sports have superstitions, and like the new superstition, or like the new thing is like Kiko on home soil on his home ground, like popping off like 60 kills in two maps is absolutely insane. Like, for him to not be like, the star fragging duelist, to be, a sentinel and a smokes player, occasionally he'll hop on jet. Kiko, man, his impact is so crazy. And the person that I wanted to step up the most going into this, as we go back to the previous video, one of the previous videos where I talk about each individual player, each team needs a player to step up. And honestly, Scuba stepped up. Like, that was the player that I highlighted where he needed to, start winning some clutches, like be able to play some crucial impact on his team. And it doesn't have to be the flashy kills. It doesn't have to be, the most technical thing, but it's just like, getting a clutch for your team, being able to, make some calls for your team. And I feel like Scuba has stepped up a lot more compared to his playoff performance. And on the flip side for XLG, honestly, I felt like this should have won 3 maps. If it wasn't for Kiko, then they probably for sure go to 3 maps. Because if you look at Lotus, which is probably the most, highlighted map in the series, if we talk about Lotus, then they most likely win this if it isn't for Kiko. I think he probably dropped within this spread around at least 10 kills within his 34 kills. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell for XLG and China what's the future remains for them and how they decide to improve on, and if the meta will shape towards them. But these international performances are not looking is not a great look for them, if I'm being honest. The next game, DRG and Vitality. Vitality, man, Sayonara cannot be killed. Like, every single time there would be a pan of a Emily, there would be a pan of a M, there would be a pan of a M, there would be a pan of an enemy player against Sayonara in a 1v1, and he would just instant flick towards them. Like, Sayonara was that dude, and he probably is gonna be the superstar on Vitality when you already have Durka and Chronicle. Like, honestly, the one player that I chose to step up for this team was Profect. And honestly, Profect, he did pretty good. Like, he showed his role and had impact in his rounds. But man, Sayonara was definitely MVP of how, like, he chose to dominate a game. Like, there were so many times where things could have flipped to the flip side of DRG, where they could have won a couple rounds, especially on this Breeze, and even a couple rounds on these Lotus, where it's a 1v1, and that pick on Sayonara instantly swings the round and a higher percentage chance of DRG. But he would just get him, and especially the clutches on Lotus. Like, I remember the first clutch he has on Lotus, like, where he comes off of A site and he just is retaking, and he just goes in by himself. Like, obviously, he's one of the last people alive, but he wins that clutch. And honestly, there's individual plays in Valorant that I believe that is the determining factor of, like, okay, this round sets in stone for how they win this series. And that was like the first pillar of how they win this series. And as we go further into the series, he would just constantly provide real value to his team where they just could not kill him. And when it comes to DRG, honestly, I thought that one of the players I was looking forward to was Life, because Life, previously when he went to international with FPX, like, he showed so highlights of him being compared to Kong Kong at the time. But now it's just like, it's so, like, it's so bad to be able to, like, see him in this form. Like, he made some really good players. Honestly, he was really good throughout this series, but like, at the same time, like, I feel like his team wasn't really setting him up that well to be able to carry. Because, like, at this point, like, everybody sees Vukashu as the person to carry, but like, you need more players to be able to carry and have better team play. Like, if it isn't Vukashu, like, who else? Like, we can look at the rest of the roster and like there isn't really anybody else that had like significant value. Like in comparison to like this matchup, like there wasn't any other player that like hit a really good round and swung the momentum towards them. Like it just wasn't a good showing. And for Vitality, I think the hardest thing to measure to go into this uh Masters tournament is like the EMEA teams. Like they didn't really look good because I watched them throughout stage one, and I feel like they were kind of like in a lull. Like most of the teams, like the 2 and 3 seeds, were kind of like finding themselves, but Foot was like the stronger team, like was the out the gate stronger team, and was one of the top seeds, but kind of like drifted their way into into playoffs and made it into an international. These 2 and 3 seeds showed a lot of inconsistencies, and so it's hard to measure like, oh, are on this day are they going to be able to perform really well? And I believe this series showed like, oh, this is the super team, this is the Vitality that we've been waiting for. But like, where was it in the beginning of EMEA? Like, was it this meta change that was like, oh, this is perfect for us? I don't Durka doesn't have to play Neon, like this is perfect for us. Is it that, or was it just like some things that were like, okay, we're going through ups and downs, but it's a slow progression, a compound effect into where we are, and we're hitting that curve, that high curve into where we want to be. And as we go furthermore into the EMEA teams, again, it's just a lot of inconsistencies, but now they show really great form, and so they seem like really dangerous teams for the first seeds. And if either Vitality and Foot, obviously, because in the next series we'll talk about it, these EMEA teams are probably going to be picked last just because they have shown the strongest form. And not to piggyback on some of the previous matches, but even Energy, like if it isn't for Kiko, then they showed a lot of struggles into their last matchup. And so now, Full Sense and Foot, man, again, Foot showed a lot of inconsistencies into their playoffs, and they showed a lot of highs into Sop. But again, my man Zeus stepped up when I had him as a highlight player into the series. Like Zeus and Sop, obviously Sop is the highlight player. He's honestly taken over as a star for this team, and you're gonna see a lot of highlights, a lot of clips from this game right here. But man, Zeus, he was the 1-2 with Sop. And if it isn't honestly for them two, then it probably is a closer game. But man, Full Sense, as somebody who enjoys watching APAC and firmly believes them as one of the strongest regions, man, Full Sense, like I believe in the Primi pick, but like at the same time, like we're sticking with old comps and the Neon, and it just doesn't seem like it just leaves a sour taste. And like, okay, like teams Foot is the prototype of what you want to be as Full Sense, like the double duelist, the Jet Rays, like they can literally copy this comp of the Jet Rays. Full Sense can for Foot, because honestly, when we think about Masters London, before all these games, we're thinking about Primi and be able to opt, and being on the Phoenix. Like it's hard to be able to opt on the Phoenix because you're setting up the main duelist, because in this sense it's you know the in the sense it's the Neon with Jip Boys. It's a really hard look for this team because you see Premi and he's a really good Phoenix, but at the same time, like you expect the superstar power of, kind of like a Durka, where he can just hop on an op and be able to take over a game. And you can't really do that with the Phoenix. Phoenix is setting up his team, setting up the main duelist in the sense where it's Chip Boys on the Neon, but it just leaves a souring taste in your mouth. It's like, okay, if we lost on this count, like we can just copy Foot, and hopefully we can make the best adaptations into our next game. And hopefully with this young team, they're able to do that, because that's all we're looking for, is just a good performance out of this team. Maybe expectations have lowered after this game just because of how dominant Foot was, but you just want to see at least a spark or a potential of like, okay, this is a dangerous team. And even if that doesn't carry into the next games, it's just something to look forward to, especially as Champs comes on. If it isn't a good showing in this Masters, then it's a worrying look into Champs. And the last game, Lev and GE. Honestly, I thought GE took over most of this game. Like going into the first map, Lev looked like kind of slow, like especially from them coming off of EWC. Like you would think that most of the comps, they didn't really change anything. Like, oh, like they had less than a week prep, at least assumingly less than a week prep on their comps and their set strats. But first map, it seems like okay, GE is probably gonna 2-0 them. And going into the second map, you would think the same because for the most part, it was, hand in hand. Like Lev would go on a run and then GE go on a run, and then it seemed like okay, maybe GE has their edge because they have first make or they have first map, they won first map, and then they're going into the second map. They're gonna be able to close it out. But then the problem that always comes with GE is the ability to close or the ability to bounce back off a really bad momentum, like a pistol round that leads into a bonus. Like it's just really hard for this team to be able to bounce back. And Lev, I think it was really impressive for Lev to be able to carry on their same comps. But will it be punished at a higher level with G2 already playing them or already have played them and be able to win them in a best of 5 series? Maybe in a best of 3 series a little different because in the previous best of 3 series against the G2, Lev did win. So again, it's everything with these first games, it is good with a grain of salt. It's very possible for these 0-1 teams to be able to bounce back and make it 2-1, but the signs are there. The signs are okay. Well, Lev is a solid team. Even with the little prep, they have shown a lot of impressive things for a young team. And a lot of young teams, the common thing is like lack of discipline, making a lot of mistakes, being phased by the pressure. But this team loves the energy, loves, again, we go back to a previous video. The two people I highlighted for this match were Sato and Yudotan. Both their measured impact was insane. Like Sato on the second map, I feel like his momentum carried it all the way into the third map, especially when he's on the Waylay and Phoenix, when he can be like one of the primary duelists or be able to opt what on the Waylay, but then also be able to set his team on the Phoenix. It just like his impact is so great that often it gets overshadowed by Neon, which fairly so. Neon is a really good player, and honestly, I think he is their best overall player. But man, Sato has the highest ceiling for a primary duelist. Even though Neon can flex, like I think he's a really good overall player. And man, Spike, you would think Spike, because obviously his movement is insane, and is probably one of the best Neons. He would be nerfed, especially in this matchup. And it's hard to tell how this momentum carries on because honestly, if we're looking at the next matchups or we'll go on to, it leaves a lot of question marks more than what is gonna more confirmation. So the last thing I want to talk about is that I feel like Global is a victim of their micro mistakes, where a lot of things, if they stack on and don't start to go right, then this team can crumble. And I don't think they necessarily crumbled in the grand scheme of things because they could have easily been 0-2'd in a bigger picture, like in a vacuum. Lev could have 0-2'd them if they had a bad start. In this sense, I feel like they performed really well. They showed a lot, like probably their best form in terms of how they look in stage 1 into playoffs. And even though they made it into Masters London, I feel like this was the best version of Global. And this can be a huge glimmer of hope leading into champs, because this team is going to need a lot if they want to be able to make it out of Swiss and into playoffs, because a lot of the competition that may have to drop down into their labs, if they win their next matchup, then that is going to be the good litmus test of how this team will perform going forward. Now here's the bad news. This may be the worst draw in VCT history. I mean, matter of fact, I think everybody can agree this is the worst draw in VCT history. And this is why this may be the worst day, because a lot of what the narrative around VCT is like, earn everything. Like be able to earn your place, earn your spot, earn your championships going into wherever, the accomplishment is. And so going into this draw, it just doesn't make sense. Like we if you're an avid viewer of VCT, then you already have seen these matchups. Obviously, each individual region had to play these games in order for them to be able to make it to there. So we're already seeing rematches, and yes, some of them may be rivalries. Yes, these matchups are technically good on paper, but it's like most of these internationals, most of for the casual viewers, like most of the excitement is be able to see international teams play against each other. It doesn't matter what the record is. It's just being able to be able to experience and visually see how these two teams in dynamic playstyles call against each other and shoot against each other. And in this scenario where it's EMEA, Americas, China, and APAC, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Like, if you are of a team that believes in this in each region, like if you're America's Pilled fan, then you want Energy and Lev to be able to both qualify. They still can, but if we go back to the lower bracket where we have GE and Full Sensei, like people that believe in APAC and want both of them to qualify, how does this make sense? How is this a possibility? Like, yes, counter argument is like, oh, if they just win, then that doesn't happen. But it's just like, even then, like, imagine being GE or Full Sense and being like, oh, the only international experience I got to play is Foot or Lev. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Imagine either of these teams don't make champs. Imagine that, being able to see them like in person, or be able to watch the stream and see them be able to finally play against the international teams, and they just don't only play one game, and then they play another regional. So now we'll just do a quick overview of the games and what I think will happen. I think if Foot is informed, then they beat Vitality. I think it's guaranteed for this map to go, or for the series to go 3 maps. Only if these two teams were hitting on the same notes that they previously played on. The first games that they played on against their respective opponents, like, if these two teams are in prime form, I think it goes to 3 maps. Now, who I think will win? I think if we get the same version of Foot and the same version of Vitality, I think Foot win this. Just because, like, Foot have learned their lesson. They learned, okay, we underperform in playoffs. Even though, like, they made it, they qualified to international. I believe some of the form they showed in that stage 1, that they probably should have won it all, but they just, maybe ran out of energy, whatever reason you want to give to them. But I think this version of Foot is the version of Foot that everybody has been looking forward to when they added SOP. Because initially, this team was really lackluster when they just had Zeus as a primary duelist. Now they have double duelists, and they know how to be able to run it. Like, it just, the ceiling is the limit. And it's so crazy to be able to see, like, the 180 of EMEA. Like, Fnatic has been, the dominant international force in this game. But with Foot and even Vitality, like, teams are stepping up their play styles and be able to shoot back. And obviously, these Switch stage are with a grain of salt, because yes, they could be the pivotal factor into how they determine the rest of the playoffs, and these two teams could go on a run. But at the same time, you still got to give respect to the people that qualified first. Next game, I believe this one's a little hard to call, because Energy, depending on how they approach the game plan, I believe they could win. But if I had to put, like, my gut feeling on it, I feel like Lev win, just based off of the momentum. Like, Lev be able to crunch out the win against GE, where most likely the odds were favored against them, being able to win that series and be able to win it out. I feel like they carry on this momentum and even show a good resilience against a team like Energy that already has demonstrated world-class resilience on a stage. And so in America's matchup, to be able to qualify to playoffs, I think Lev have the edge. But don't be surprised, because this is honestly a 50-50. I can flip a coin, and there's either team can win. So little sidetrack. But a lot of these internationals, when it came to previously Master Santiago, there are a lot of 2-0s. And I feel like a lot of it is just because it's a lot of momentum based, a lot of energy based. And we're starting to see a lot of that too until this GE game, where I believe it was the only game that went to a map 3, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's the only thing. It's the only game that went to a map 3. There's a lot of 2-0s just because I feel like, I don't know if it's just like these not established cores, like these experienced teams, like an Energy that has been a solid core for a while now, where they're able to adapt in high pressure situations to be able to flip the momentum. If they lose a map, they can flip it into a map 3 win. With these teams, it's honestly, it's hard to say. Like, again, flip a coin, on to the next. In a China regional game, to extend their life on the Switch stage, extend their life on the international stage, I believe G-Lai or XLG is heavily favored. Though, again, this is a regional matchup, I feel like an upset isn't entirely out of the possibility, because I feel like XLG showed great form, especially if they play that Lotus, they automatically have a guaranteed win. So it depends on the map ban. And for this one, I'm going to keep it short just because I feel like this isn't really a popular game, just because everybody's down on China. But don't be surprised if one of these teams could use this as a platform to be able to squeeze their way into playoffs. You know, if they get a favorable matchup, if one of these teams get a favorable matchup into the next stage to, one more win after that, then don't be surprised. Honestly, the best game that might come out of these next 2 days is GE and Full Sense. And honestly, it's a matter if GE can be resilient in this series, because previous series in stage 1 against these teams, like, it was just a 0-2. And honestly, it's hard to tell if GE just took their foot off the pedal in that previous game. And it's just a matter as well for Full Sense if they choose to adapt, because if they're playing their old comps or some of the comps that they played in the previous series, then I don't think they have the edge, especially with how Frost is able to prepare, and he has an extra day too to be able to prepare against Full Sense. And knowing him, he's probably gonna expect them to adapt to be able to play. Hey, Primi, get on Jet. Like, even if, depending on the map down too, because obviously Breeze, they're gonna have him play Jet. It's actually criminal if he doesn't play Jet, because obviously he played Jet in Series 1 or Stage 1. If GE showed their form, then they most likely win against Full Sense. But if Full Sense choose to adapt and show some of the flashes that they showed in Stage 1, then again, it's a close map. It's so hard because everybody's now down on Pacific, where these two teams are shown as inconsistent. They're not gonna live up to their potential, and they're not, these EMEA 2 and 3 seeds are now on a higher tier than them. And Pacific was once, one of the most dominant regions, and now obviously one of them has to go out. And so yeah, that's some of the reaction that I've had. Man, this draw, man, I cannot believe it, but we'll just have to live with it, because I think at least one of the benefits is that when it comes to the decider games of the 1-1 teams throughout these next games, when it comes to the decider, there won't be any regional matchups, so they'll for sure guarantee at least one region per 1-1. An EMEA team, an Americas team, China, and then APAC. Hopefully we get some good games, and then hopefully this also leads to some potential banger decider games that'll come out on Wednesday. If I just think off the top of my head, some banger games, like, it'll be like NRG, GE, a Foot, GE, or Vitality, GE, a Full Sense, NRG. That would be a really good one. These are my first thoughts. It's might be a little bit all over the place, but I just want to give my raw general reaction to all this, because it's been a little bit interesting how all of this has played out.